Sony APS-C Travel Kit. As a travel and hybrid creator, the criteria I look out for in lenses for travel and vacation is, number one, as lightweight and as portable as possible. That's the most important to me. Number two, aperture as wide as possible while being the above. While certain lenses can go up to f1.2, they can be kinda too chunk for my liking. Number three, having great and reliable autofocus capabilities. And number four, having exceptional image quality. Now, depending on what exists in the market, I can usually compromise in some areas, i.e. f4 lenses or manual only lenses, because they're lighter. But nowadays, we don't have to compromise. Within the last year or so, we have seen some amazing APS-C lenses coming into the market that we've been desperately needing. And in this video, I'll walk you through my gear recommendations for a Sony APS-C A6000 and ZV-E10 travel kit. By the way, shout out to KEH Camera for sponsoring a portion of this video. So the three lenses that I'll be recommending today is the Sony 11mm f1.8, the Sigma 18-50 f2.8, and last but not least, the Sony 70-350mm f4.5 to 6.3 G lens. And I'll get into details why for each lenses, the accessories that go with them, and also alternatives in case you need stabilization in your lenses. In fact, let's address that first. Right off the bat, the first couple of lenses that I'm recommending don't have built-in lens stabilization, and depending on what you shoot, it may or may not affect you at all. For A6600 and A6500 users, you guys have in-body image stabilization, so nothing for you to really worry about. But for the rest, A6000 series and ZV-E10 users, pay attention. For photography, doesn't really affect you all that much whether or not you have body or lens stabilization. Just crank up the shutter and you should be fine in terms of getting focused images in most situations. However, it will affect video creators more. You'll notice more obvious shakes in the corners of your footage if neither your camera nor the lens have some kind of built-in stabilization. Now, of course, that can be rectified with a stabilizer, so if you plan on including that into your kit, which I personally will, then these lenses here are still very viable options. With that said, I am really hoping we'll see an updated Sony APS-C body being released this year with in-body image stabilization and 4K 60p capabilities, because then these lenses here with that body, perfection. Come on, Sony, make it happen. Okay, let's go ahead and get into the why. So the first thing on the list is the Sony 11mm f1.8 for about $550. It's brand new, it just got released, and it's a huge part of the reason why I am making this video, because up until now, it was hard to get something this wide. An ultra-wide angle lens with an f1.8, that is.
Just look at how tiny this lens is, and it's super light too.
And this is gonna give us a 16.5mm full frame field of view equivalent, which would be great for those wide architectural shots, interiors, landscape, and it's gonna be great for gimbals and for vlogging as well. Now, usually I don't go for zooms when it comes to ultra wide because I would typically just use the widest end of the lens anyway. I mean, sure, the flexibility of the zoom is nice, but I would swap over to a more dedicated, versatile mid-range zoom lens if needed. Plus, again, it's an f1.8, which has been very hard to attain until now for an ultra-wide angle lens. So that's gonna give us some really nice bokeh when you do some close-up shots, and it's gonna be really handy in low-light situations. Now, alternatively, if you need something really wide with stabilization for vlogging, then the original Sony 10-18mm f4 version 1 is still gonna be your best bet. It has the fabled OSS built-in, optical steady shot. However, it's a fairly dated lens now, not gonna lie. The image quality, especially in the corners, are weak compared to the new version 2, but other than that, it's not a bad lens. Solid AF, as in solid autofocus. And as f too. Now, devoted Tamron users would rinse me if I didn't mention the 11-20mm f2.8 zoom. It's also a great alternative if you need that zoom flexibility at f2.8, though keep in mind that that lens does not have lens stabilization. So if I had to choose, again, I highly recommend the Sony 11mm just because of its uber light size and weight. Next up, we need an anything and everything lens, something that's wide enough to capture decent amount of space, but also zoom really quickly for those tight and hyper-focused shots in a pinch. That's where this Sigma 18-50mm comes in. And Sigma is the only one by far that's giving us a balance in size and range out of everybody else, and it's an f2.8 lens. The Sony 16-55mm f2.8 has the best image quality out of all the similar lenses that I've tested. However, in the scope of APS-C, it's a pretty hefty lens. There's also the Tamron 17-70mm f2.8, the only one out of the three with lens stabilization and the most reach. However, it's kinda chunk. So while this Sigma here might fall a little short compared to the other two, in the grand scheme of things, it's still a 27-75mm full frame field of view equivalent, and if we look at some of the best versatile zoom lenses for full frame, it's usually a 24-70 or 28-75, so this right here falls right at the standard. So for the price and for its size, it's a huge win in my book. Great for portraits, street, landscape, cityscape, events, pretty much everything, and especially great for run and gun video work and gimbal. Now, alternatives. It's gonna be the Tamron 17-70mm. It's also an f2.8 with lens stabilization, but there's also the Zeiss 16-70mm f4 or the Sony 18-105 f4 if you really need something that is light with lens stabilization and you have a camera that doesn't. It does suck that you have to go down to f4, but the trade-off is getting more stable video footage while maintaining a light setup. Now, a lot of the alternative lenses that I've been recommending have been in the market for a good while now, so there's a good chance that they're available at an affordable price. Zeiss 16-70mm for $334?
No way!
That's a great deal! Sony 10-18 for less than $600? Wow! That's a great deal! When I first got started in photography and videography, I bought a lot of used gear so I could save on some money. To buy more gear, of course, and to this day, I still buy used gear. This PlayStation 5 controller right here, pre-owned, original price, $70. I got it for $30. I mean, if your boy can save on some money, why not, right? Which is why I renewed my partnership with KEH Camera, and they are just informing me that they do not carry PlayStation 5 controllers, and I should not have mentioned that to avoid confusion. Whoops. But seriously, they are one of the safest sites to purchase used gear from. Everything that comes through are screened and tested thoroughly, and it's backed by their 180 days of warranty. And if you're not completely satisfied with it, you can return the gear within 21 days. However, if you're looking to sell, they make it easy as well. You can get a virtual quote right away, and if you end up sending your gear in but change your mind, they will ship it right back to you at no cost to you. To learn more, check out the link in the description box below, and oh look, the next lens that I'm recommending is available on KEH. The Sony 70-350mm f4.5 to 6.3 G lens. Now, I'm gonna say this one here is gonna be optional, and that's because it is significantly larger than the other two lenses that I've just recommended combined. But I have good reasons for it. It's about $1,000, and this will give us 105 to 525mm full frame field of view equivalent. Let me repeat that one more time. 105 to 525mm full frame equivalent. Think about that. Think about that for one hot second. We are saving a lot of space from the other two lenses, and we can fit this one right in, and this will be our one and only big one. Now, no, it is an f2.8 constant aperture, unfortunately, and this is where one of those compromises would come in. But with its reach, we can still get some pretty decent bokeh. And what we're really valuing here is the distance, right? We're getting some pretty crazy reach here. Plus, this has optical steady shots, so it helps us frame and get stable shots, especially at the far end. So, what is it good for?
What is it good for?
I don't know, moonshots with an f6.3? Why not? I did it. My ISO was only at 640, so no issues with noise. But to be fair though, this photo here was during the buck supermoon, so I got lucky. But this lens here will truly shine in bright environments, no pun intended. And if you like to do nature, hike, cityscape, landscape, distance, architectural shots, this is gonna be the best lens for it. So one alternative that I have is, and some people are not gonna like this, but it's gonna be the kit zoom lens, the 55 to 210 millimeter by Sony. It's way lighter and skinnier, but the image quality might not match up, but it should do the job on the budget. However, if you really need that constant f2.8 aperture, you're gonna need to go full frame. Either the 70 to 200mm f2.8 G Master from Sony, or the more budget-friendly option, the Tamron 70 to 180 f2.8. The latter does not have lens stabilization, but both have f2.8 apertures, and if you value that and you don't mind the size and the weight, go for those. However, I still think the Sony 70 to 350 is going to be the best compromise, and I do hope that someday in the future, we will see an APS-C f2.8 mega zoom. Now, to house everything together, for photography and light video, I'd recommend the Peak Design Sling at 10L. Convenient 3 slots for the 3 lenses with 1 attached to the camera. And besides the backpack, this is likely my second most used camera bag. And with it, I highly recommend the Peak Design Capture Clip. I have 3 of these spread across my camera bags, and it's just really nice to have the camera hang securely on the side or on the strap of my backpack for quick access when I'm walking out and about. I've been using the system for the last 6 years and never had an issue with it dropping my cameras. Just make sure everything is tight and secured, alright? Promise me, please. Now, where you may want to consider a backpack instead is if you're bringing a gimbal, and for that I have the Peak Design Everyday Backpack Zip. We can place the gimbal on the side, and the turtle shell design allows us to keep a shotgun mic mounted on the camera and placed right at the top so we can quickly have access to the setup. And the gimbal of choice would be, of course, the Zhiyun Crane M3. And I love using this tiny gimbal with my full frame setup, but it's gonna perform even better with the APS-C setup. Way less strain on the motor, really smooth results. I just love using this with the new 11mm on it. However, the only pain point of this gimbal is that I have to use their quick release system. It's this long bar thing, and I tried to adapt an Arca Swiss quick release system on it before, just because the Peak Design plates are square and Arca Swiss compatible, but because this gimbal is already so small and so short, it actually caused more issue with the balance. Righto, moving on for ND filters. Now, I personally haven't used them in a long while now, but I was using the Polar Pro variable ND filters. The smallest that I have is a 67mm, so it's a perfect fit for that zoom lens. But for the Sony 11 and the Sigma 18 to 50, I would need a 55 to 67mm step-up ring, which is going to be perfect for the 11mm anyways. You would always want to have a slightly larger filter for an ultra-wide angle lens, otherwise you get some crazy vignetting on the corners. So my advice is to buy a 67mm, get a step-up ring, and you can share that between those 2 lenses right there. Now, for vlogging mic, if I was using the ZV-E10, I'd go for one of the latest Sony shotgun mics. They connect onto the hot shoe and work right away, no cable or batteries needed. But if it's any of the current A6000 series camera, I'd use the Rode Video Micro. I have this $50 mic for years now and it's still pretty solid. Just make sure to pick up a hot shoe relocator from Small Rig so you don't block your screen. For the mini tripod, I would use the PGY-Tech Mantis Pod. This lock here is compatible with the Peak Design square plates. However, the PGY-Tech snap lock plate that it comes with isn't actually compatible with the Peak Design capture clip, so keep that in mind. PGY-Tech do have their own version of the capture clip known as the Beetle. I personally haven't fully tested it out yet, so I'm not sure how secure it is. If you have it, please share your experience down below. And that's pretty much it, guys. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace.
Subscribe.